One of the central issues around free speech is just how many protections your speech has. For example, legally you have the freedom to express just about anything you want. You have the freedom to insult people, to insult marginalized groups, to say the most vile things that you have concocted. Upon hearing this, others have the right to respond to you verbally. They have the right to insult you, to debate you, to question you, or to not respond at all. You then have the right to respond to their response. Eventually, though, things will break down, and one person or another will claim that their freedom of speech has been violated. This is the other shade of the paradox of free speech. That is, if everyone has the right to say whatever they want, why do people inevitably claim their speech has been violated? So, to examine this, let's take a real-world example that has been hitting the headlines recently. Clementine Ford, an Australian feminist critic and writer, came into the spotlight recently when she got an individual who insulted her fired from his job. Ford has a particularly scaly reputation on the internet, known for needlessly ramping up the toxicity of any article or conversation she is involved with, as well for being particularly scathing and insulting towards those who may disagree with her. The particular case we're talking about today starts when a man over Facebook comments to Ford calling her a slut. Ford then uses the information on his Facebook page to find his employer and then subsequently contact them and tell them about their exchange. As a result, this individual was fired. This case has evolved into a particularly robust debate, shall we call it, about who is in the right and who is in the wrong, and whether or not freedom of speech was violated. I, for one, believe it to be extraordinarily obvious that freedom of speech was violated in this instant as well. Though neither side is blameless, Ford deserves the lion's share of the blame. Let me tell you why. Because, essentially, there are two realms. The realm of speech and the realm of action. In the realm of speech, you're able to say pretty much whatever you want. However, once you cross into the realm of action, it's a whole different story. As a rule of thumb, I generally feel the one who has crossed from speech to action first is the one who is losing that particular debate or argument. That is because it almost always results in the immediate loss of any moral high ground. Back to the case at hand, this guy clearly isn't the nicest individual. And if you want to defeat someone in a debate, you don't look to insult them. Instead, you look to counter their ideas and arguments. With that being said, calling someone a slut is entirely in the realm of speech, and Ford has the absolute right to respond within that realm. Unfortunately, by going and calling and trying to get this person fired and succeeding, she has ultimately exited the realm of speech into the realm of action. From a moral standpoint, calling someone an insult is not a nice thing to do, but it doesn't cause any permanent physical damage, whereas getting someone fired and potentially ruining their life results in a net loss of good in the world. To put this another way, when you are in the realm of speech, you're just waving your arms around in front of someone's face. When you enter the realm of action, then you are punching them in the face. So, in our example here, the commenter was waving their arms, extremely rudely, I grant you, in front of Ford's face. But Ford responded by effectively punching him in the face. And in our judicial system, the one who punches first is the one who is at fault So, to recap, responding to someone who is in the realm of speech by moving it into the realm of action is a violation of free speech, as well as it will oftentimes result in the immediate loss of any moral high ground, and also make you the instigator rather than the victim. Now, I can see two counter-arguments which will formulate themselves. The first is that I will be accused of absolving someone who is not blameless. Napoleon once said that those who wish to avoid war should avoid the pinpricks that precede cannon fire. So, I get the argument, and the insulter certainly isn't blameless, and I don't claim to ever have believed they are. But our everyday lives are not governed by the laws of Napoleonic warfare, and we have to consider what's a reasonable response to an action. Punching someone in the face for waving their arms is not a reasonable response, just as getting someone fired for insulting you isn't either. The second counter-argument will be, but Spencer, the insulter already crossed into the realm of action, because speaking is an action, and you should be held responsible for your actions. I find this argument to be rather disingenuous. We all know speech and action are not the same things. You're not going to go to jail for saying, I want to murder insert group du jour, but you are going to go to jail for actually murdering people. We constantly say we should judge others by their actions, not their words. In fact, judging someone just based on their words is considered a bit naive, is it not? I remember in George R.R. Martin's latest book, A Dance with Dragons, the phrase, words are wind, shows up approximately 1 billion times. So much so, in fact, that his editor told him he should edit out all the instances of the phrase but one, and replace it with something else. George didn't buy it, and the phrase remains in this book for time immemorial. He points out one clear thing, though, by using this phrase over and over and over again. That is, don't judge another person by what they say. Judge them by how they act. The fact is, the physical and the verbal exist in different realms, and are treated as such. Words are not the same as actions. There we go. Even though I could say more, for now, I'm going to have to leave it here. The purpose of this episode was to hopefully give you some insight into the importance of free speech, how lucky we are to have it in our modern times, and how it should be defended in its purest form. So I appeal to my generation. Don't let the temptation to fall to censorship overtake you. Whether that censorship is overt or covert, many generations of human history have fought long and hard for this right. The right which has delivered us so much progress. So let us not voluntarily give it up. It should be our role instead to expand and enshrine this freedom so that we might lay the road for future generations, and so we might make it possible that no human being will have to live without this right ever again in our long history. This concludes the second episode of Ne Plus Ultra. I hope you'll stick around for the second segment of the show, and come back for next week's episode, Shadows on the Wall.
This war.